When I first came to Japan, I got a job working as an English teacher at a small school out in the countryside. I lived in the Kyoto prefecture. A lot of people know Kyoto as Japan's ancient city, but Kyoto City is inside of a prefecture called Kyoto Prefecture. And I lived in the northern Kyoto prefecture in a small town called Fukuchiyama. It was a small country town with lots of little rice fields, beautiful mountains in the background, and just small country roads. It was a very beautiful place, but also very isolated. And I usually worked about 2 to 4 hours a day, so I had a lot of free time. And in my free time, I would go to a little coffee shop downtown and study Japanese. And the downtown area was just a few little retail shops, a few little mom and pop shops. There was a bank, pharmacy, just the basics. And there was a little, one little train station. And I would go to this coffee shop, and at that time I had been in Japan for less than a year. I would go to this coffee shop, and my goal was to, I wanted to learn Japanese so that I could fit into my new life in Japan better. So this one day, I rode my bicycle down to the train station, which was where this coffee shop was. It took about 15 minutes to ride my bicycle there, and along my way to the coffee shop, I would pass through little rice fields and pass by old Japanese houses and go down these narrow little winding roads. It was really nice scenery. And I got to the coffee shop, and I was in my routine. I got a table, and I was just studying these Japanese characters. Japanese is written with Chinese characters called kanji. So at that time I was learning kanji. And during my time in Fukuchiyama, I never saw other Western people. And I was studying Japanese, and this white lady walked in, and I just, I noticed her come in. And then about 10 minutes later, she walked by my table to go to the bathroom. And then when she came out, she passed by my table again. And then she said, "Hi, are you studying Japanese?" And yeah, I told her I was studying Japanese, and then she just sat down at my table and she started talking to me. And she told me about her life there. She said she had been living in Fukuchiyama for 10 years. And I was like, wow, I can't imagine you have lived here for 10 years, because there's like nothing to do here. It's just, you're out in the countryside, you're totally isolated, there's no other, Westerners. And she told me that her husband was, she was married to a Japanese man, and he was a doctor. And she said that she was a housewife, so she just stayed home all day. And she said she enjoyed cooking, and she told me about all the American dishes she could cook. And she said she enjoyed playing the piano. And she could already speak Japanese, so now she was interested in studying French. And she showed me her books that she was studying from, her French textbooks. And we talked more and more. And at this time I was in my 20s, and she looked like she was in her late 50s maybe. I remember she had white hair. All her hair was white, but she was very slim. And to me she was just like a grandmother, I guess. So she got more and more excited as she talked to me, and she wanted me to come over to her house so that we could cook American food together. And she wanted to play the piano and sing songs, and she started telling me all these things that she wanted to do. And she got more and more excited, and we ended up talking for about 40 minutes. And actually she just seemed a little lonely. It's like she had lived here all this time, and I I'm assuming that just the same as me, she hadn't seen a lot of other Western people, so that when she saw another Western person, she just got so excited, because even though you live in Japan and you can speak Japanese, and you can relate to Japanese people, you're honestly, you're always treated as an outsider, even though the Japanese people, they can be very nice and kind, and that's nice and everything, but sometimes it's just nice to be able to talk to somebody you can relate to and speak English. And so I think she was just really happy that she found somebody that she could talk to, and she just got really excited, and it was a little bit overwhelming for me. I was just kind of taken aback, and so she told me she wanted me to go to her house, and so that we could like cook together and just hang out or whatever. And she got a piece of paper and she started to draw a detailed map to her house, and I mean very detailed. It took her like 20 or 30 minutes to draw this map, and all the while she was drawing this map, I was kind of thinking like, I'm probably not going to go to your house. And then she wrote her address on there and her phone number, and I think at that time I was in my young 20s, and I just kind of saw her as a grandmother, and I didn't really think that if we hung out there would be, I don't know, we would have much in common or whatever. And admittedly, as I reflect on this memory in my life, I see that I was probably a little narrow-minded and a little insensitive, but that's how I felt at the time. So it took her like 30 minutes to draw this map, and she wrote her address and her phone number on there, and she's like, please contact me. I didn't give her my address or my phone number or anything like that, because I was it just all happened all of a sudden. So anyways, she finally left, and then that was that. I didn't think about it again. So a couple months later, I was downtown again, and it was just in the middle of winter, and I remember it was a really cold day. There was snow and ice on the ground. It was the kind of day like where if you go outside, it's so cold you just don't want to be outside. And I remember I was wearing like a sweater and a really heavy coat, and everybody who was walking outside had their heads burrowed into their jackets, and they just wanted to get inside. It was that kind of a winter day. And I had gone to the bank, and I think I was a little confused or something, and some young Japanese girl was walking with me to help me do what I needed to do. So we were walking and talking together, and I remember we were at this kind of we were near a bank, and we were walking towards an escalator, and there was one escalator coming up and one going down. And coming up the escalator, I saw this Western person. And of course, in this small little town in Fukuchiyama, it's like whenever I saw a Western person, I immediately, like, I don't know, they stood out because I never saw Western people there. And it turns out that the person I saw was this lady I had met a couple months ago. And she saw me too, and she recognized me, and she came up to me in this kind of like excited, happy, panicked kind of state of mind. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. I was hoping you would call me, and I wanna hang out with you, and you can come to my house and we can cook together." And she was like so happy and so excited. And the thing is, it was a really cold day, and you know how like when it gets cold your nose runs? Well, I think her nose was running, and this long strand of snot kind of started to form. It came out of her right nostril, and it was hanging down about 2 feet or about half a meter from her nose. So there she had this long strand of snot hanging down to her chest, and I think it was so cold that like her face was numb, my face was numb, so it's like she couldn't feel what was on her face, and she didn't notice or realize that she had this long snot string hanging from her nose. and she was like talking to me, and she was like so happy to see me and so excited, and she just came at me like a freight train. I mean, I couldn't even get a minute, a second to talk to her because she was doing all the talking. And all the while she was talking to me, she had this long snot string hanging down from her nose, and she was like all animated. She was moving around, she was waving her head, and as she did this long snot string was moving back and forth, and I was trying to listen to her, but all I could really think about was this like long snot string hanging from her face. That's like all I could like concentrate on. And I wanted to tell her, but she had such a momentum going and she was so happy. I didn't want to crush her by just telling her she had this long snot string hanging from her nose. So, I know she was already a little sensitive because I hadn't contacted her, and anyways, she was talking so fast and she was so happy to see me, and then she realized that I was with this other Japanese girl, so she didn't want to like take up too much of my time. And finally she's like, okay, we'll just call me later and we'll get together, we'll do something. And she was so happy, and then she just like walked away, and this long snot string was hanging from her face and waving around in the wind. And then she turned around again and she waved goodbye to me, and her snot string rose up and whipped around in the air like a kite in the wind. And so I waved goodbye to her, and then she just turned around and left, and her snot string followed her like she was taking her pet snake on a walk or something. And that's the last time I ever saw the old American lady from Fukuchiyama.